Hey there everyone, this is Dr. Gwen. It is 3 p.m. and I am joining you here on day 4 of How Can You Have It All? Now, I am hoping that some of my friends will join me, and I want to look to make sure that I don't have any comments down here. Today we are going to talk about how you can have it all with kids in the house. I know very often we ladies feel as though it's either the family or it's our dreams, but it can never be both. And I told you how in the past I had an opportunity to build simultaneously my family and my career, and I felt like I was able to handle that very effectively. So today I want to share with you some very wonderful and enlightening tips that will help you to gain that level of support that you need to make headway with your goals, while at the same time developing the growth and the self-sufficiency of your children, so that once they become adults, they are able to function very smoothly and efficiently on their own. So the word is still spreading, and while that is going on, I hope that you all are having a really great afternoon, and I hope that you are spending some time in reflection. Over the last 3 days, we talked about a lot of things. And one of the main things we talked about was you being able to know what your passions are. That is key to anything. And you don't necessarily have to go off starting a business doing your passions. However, it's really great once you know what those passions are to really engage in doing that. Sometime during the day, sometime during the weekend, whenever you get a chance. The really great thing is that it's really important that you're doing your passions. Then we also talk about your aligning your commitments with that. See, a lot of times we want to be all over the place, and that is not going to be the thing that's going to get you to have everything you want. So you've got to align that. Then the next part we talked about was you being aware, completely aware of who you are mentally, and also aware of the people who are in your environment, and being aware of your environment in general. You will never be able to get to breakthrough success in your life unless you are being completely transparent to who you are, and also being completely aware of who you are. We also talked about creation, and I thank you for joining me. We talked about creation and you being able to create what you actually want in your life. And it starts here. Everything you ever wanted, everything you ever dreamed of, requires that you first become something else to achieve it. You will never get to the place where you want to get to being exactly who you are. And of course, we talked about the subconscious mind and your meta-programming. Those things that keep you stuck, that want to keep you safe, but really, in essence, what is happening is that you are staying stuck. You're not growing, you're not moving, you're not expanding. And that is certainly not what we want to happen with your life. So, how in the world do you achieve what you want when you have a family, when you have kids that are in your household that you have to attend to? How do you do that? Well, that's a great question, and I'm glad that you asked it. See, there are a couple things that you first need to be aware of. Number one, when you have children in the household, and it can start as young as ever, but I'll put some age brackets on some of the discussions that I'm giving that will help you to be able to sort through what you have to sort through. But you you can start as young as possible with some of these things that I'm going to show you. And what these things are going to do is they're not only going to train and educate your children, because after all, you have kids to raise them up so they can function independently on their own. You're not raising them up so that they're going to be sucking on society. You're raising them up so that they can bring the contribution to the society, so they can be self-sufficient, so they can fulfill whatever it is that they want and need in their lives. So there are some very great things that you can do simultaneously while you are doing this with your kids that will also help you to have what you want. So are you ready? Okay, stay tuned here. Gotta adjust my camera. Sorry about that. I think this is wanting to tip a little bit, so let me situate this so that we don't have everything tumbling over, right? That's certainly not what we want to happen here today. Okay, great. So let's see who's joining us. Now, I know I have a view. I can't see who it is. So if you want to show yourself, that would be really excellent. And I know a lot of you will be watching this a little later, because I've had feedback from people who weren't able to make it on the live cast with me, but they watched it later and they sent me messages. So that is just fantastic. Whenever you get a chance to watch this, this is good. And if you're watching this and you have friends or you have loved ones with kids in their household, and these are women who really want more in their lives, they just desire to be bigger and better, to show up on a massive scale in life. If you have all of that, all those friends and contacts, forward this link to them. I'm also going to transcribe or put it in on YouTube. Not transcribe, but I'm going to put it on YouTube so that people can also have access to it, because there's some great nuggets that I'm going to drop here today. So why don't we get started? Now, the conversation I'm having today is for families with school-age children. If you have kids that are younger, then there's another approach that you will have to use. And the processes can be a little more challenging when they are babies. Now, but if they are school-age children, while you groom them, you can learn to also support yourself. So how do you do that? You're going to have to first start with a conversation with your kids, because they're going to wonder, what the heck happened to mom? You know, mom has never done this before, so why is she doing all of this all of a sudden? You know, what's this all about? So you're going to have a conversation with them to implement all of this. So we'll probably get to that later if we have time, but why don't we just get to the meat and the potatoes of this? So how are you going to produce less disciplinary issues for yourself, less challenges maintaining things around the house, so that you can focus on some of the bigger needle movers that's going to benefit your kids and yourself, and perhaps your spouse if you have a spouse in the home. And if you're single, this works just as great. I was a married single for decades, a long time. At least that's how I felt, because a lot of the major things that happened with the kids, I was the only one doing it, running them here and there, to piano, to science fairs, to parent-teacher conferences, to show up to their trips, just wherever it was, you know, pretty much I handled that. So if you're in that ballpark, then this is a conversation for you as well. So what do you do? First, you're going to have to give them some responsibilities and assignments. Yes, I said it. Now let me share what I did as a parent when I was growing up, when my kids were growing up, not me. When my kids were growing up, what I actually did was I created a responsibility chart. And I call this here chart tracking chores. Chores is a boring word, but once again, I printed it backwards so that you could see. And you can see, hopefully, the writings on here. And it's listed from Sunday to Saturday. And I have some tasks that I put on there. Now, this was not the actual chart that I used, but in one of the training programs for moms that I have, I created this chart for you. Now, what went on this chart? Actually, I will probably need to tell you a story before I talk about that, what goes on the chart. When I got married the second time, there were 6 children in our household. And here I was holding down a full-time, very taxing administrative job, and also at the time going through the last phases of my doctorate degree, probably the last class or so. And now there are 6 children in the household, and 2 of them were twins, and they were under 7 years old. So what that meant for me is that a lot of the things that involved laundry and cooking and all of that stuff couldn't be their responsibility. So what I did, I actually helped myself to help myself. When the kids got old enough, what I did was actually, before they even got old, I gave everybody a responsibility chart. So there was a chart, and every child's name was on the chart. Somehow I made it so that it was one and I didn't have to contend with a lot. So every child's name was on the chart, and then there were the responsibilities for each of them. And for the young ones, they just had to make sure their toys were picked up and put away when they were done playing with it. They had to make sure that their clothes, the dirty clothes, were placed in the right place. And I even taught them how to make their beds. At 5, they can do that. It probably won't be perfect to your satisfaction. However, it's stuff you don't have to worry about if they are learning how to do it. And then what's actually also happening is that they are learning responsibilities as you go. So you're kind of killing 2 birds with one stone. You're helping yourself and you're training them as well. Now, when we moved into the house, a huge house with 6 kids, of course, there were lots of things that needed to be done around the house. And I realize now there are 3 additional children, and I certainly can't pick it all up. I tried doing the laundry for a while, and it didn't jive out with me cooking on a Sunday and getting homework and everything ready and getting myself ready to go back to work, because some of my tasks involved doing stuff at home sometimes. And so what I had to do was divide up the chores among the children. So everybody took some people took the floor, that they swept that and mopped that. Some people took the dishwasher, that they would stack that and unload that. And I taught everyone except the 5-year-olds how to sort and do their laundry, so that I didn't have to be the one to do it. There were 8 people in that house. So when they got to 7 years old, then I taught them how they were to sort the laundry by colors, how to load the liquid in the washing machine, and then when they took that out, I would help them fold it or enlist the older kids to help them fold and hang it until they learned how to hang those clothes themselves. That took an immense load off of my head. Now here's how it went down. When we had the chores to start, it was a massive struggle trying to get everybody to do it. And I did not throw my hands up and say, well, you know what, forget it. What I did was I gathered everyone and I asked them to make sure that their chores were done by a certain time on Sunday. Why did I do that? Because they would drag it out way into the night and then it never would get done, right? They were once a week would go through and do some massive dusting and cleaning up so that everything stayed nice. And that was like pulling teeth. And the first week, it didn't get done. I talked to them, nothing happened. Second week, didn't get done, talked to them, nothing happened. So by the third week, I knew from my previous psychology lessons that there needed to be consequences. So I assigned consequences to them. And they did moan and they didn't like it. But by next week, everybody was clicking. All those chores and everything were being done on time. By noon Sunday is what I set it to be. So that we could just get it out of the way. They didn't have to have this load hanging over them the entire day. And they could get on with what they wanted to do. So that's what I did. And so ever since that time, everybody fell in place. So now those chores went on the chart. I only put on there what was important for them to learn, for the responsibilities for them to learn. So, you know, we would have our morning and evening devotions. And there were times when I was rushing and I would, you know, say, well, when you get up, the first thing I want you to do is to really take time to connect spiritually. Take time to connect. And I would put that on the chart because I felt it was important for them living their future lives. So you as a parent, you can decide what goes on your chart and how that is going to work. Now, for my chart, for the little ones, when they were really little, I gave them little stars, you know, little stickers. They liked that. But as they grew older, I started to tie those household responsibilities with allowances. So previously they were getting allowances, but now the thought came to me, why don't I tie it so that they understand the value of working for something that they have? So there were dollar amounts, each chore had a certain amount, and they were responsible for going and checking it off when it was done. See what I did? I didn't put the burden on myself, but make no mistake, I was noticing what was going on. And I didn't try to, well, at first I did. I would talk about it, you know, and that would be annoying for them. It really would be. But then what I decided to do was to start having family meetings. So my husband and I, we agreed that we would have family meetings so that we could discuss what went on for the week. And those family meetings typically ended up with something fun at the end, a movie, popcorn, or I would make a special dish or something and we would all sit and eat. So it ended up pretty nice, something to look forward to. But they were able to look forward to that weekly meeting when we would talk about what was missing. Instead of nagging every day for the week, we did that while they were younger. So now, and I even did that before my second marriage with my kids, you know, my biological kids, because they're all my kids. But now we were able to collaborate and have them doing things that would benefit them and that would also benefit me, so I could be even more free to be available for them. Now, as far as responsibilities, and this is going back from decades ago, even before my second marriage, on those chart we had everyone's tasks. So some were going to piano lessons, some were going to their football lessons, some had science fairs, whatever it was. All of those responsibilities were on that chart. And everybody was able to see exactly what's going on the chart. Hey, Heba, nice to have you. Awesome. So that's really what happened. Now, this chart that I showed you before was the actual thing that helped a lot of people to keep track of what was going on. And it helped me. Boy, was I free. I really felt free. And at the same time, my household was in order. If somebody was coming to my house, I didn't have to feel like I was overwhelmed running to try to grab and pick stuff up and to clean up, because that was a process that I had set in place with the children so that I could be freer to move those big needle moving stuff that was going to benefit us in the long run. So those training charts and tying the allowance to that chart really helped. Now, what happened if they didn't do the stuff on the chart? They didn't get the money. They didn't get the money, and they really liked that allowance. So that was extra motivation. And you know what I also did? When there were more kids in the house, I actually, if one kid missed a chore and they didn't do it, I actually asked if anyone wanted to volunteer to do that chore for some bonus. Boy, I never ran out of volunteers. They were volunteering because it would be a bonus, a real big bonus on top of whatever they were getting. So in that process, though I am fulfilling a lot of huge things, I'm also taking care of training my children, and it didn't even feel like it. And they were a part of the process. Now, one thing I would recommend is there is a book, T. Harv Eker. If you know T. Harv Eker, he made a quote, and I'm going to read the quote because I don't quite remember it. It says, "Rich people manage their money well, and poor people mismanage their money well." So in essence, those allowances that the kids were getting, I was also teaching them how to utilize those allowances to get the little things that they wanted. It wasn't a free ride. I wasn't going to have them buy food and all those major things, but sometimes they're making requests, and that training money can double back to give them something they need. Now, I don't know, if you have kids, you know this. If you walk in the store, right, and they see something they like, they're going to go, "Can I have that? Can I have that? Can I have that?" And maybe you would say, "Hey, Callan, nice to see you, girl." Sometimes it gets overwhelming. Now, what you can do with their training money is to point them in that direction so they can use that to get what they want. The funny thing that I discovered, this is really weird. When I started doing that, suddenly they didn't want the thing as badly in the store because they didn't want to use their own money to get it. It was like free money for them, right? So yeah, give it to me. Can I have it? Can I have it? Can I have it? But when you say, okay, here's what I want you to do. Make sure you set aside your money to do the little things that you want, because when you run out of it, you're not going to get any until the next payday for you. So what was I doing? I was actually training them to be responsible with their finances while I wasn't really in it. See how you can do that? I was still taking care of my bigger role, but in the background they were doing all of this, and on top of that they were learning those principles that they needed to function well in society and to be responsible with credit. Now, speaking about credit, and this is a side note since I said it, when I went shopping and I were to pull out my credit card, I would make that a point of instruction. Because, sometimes I didn't travel with cash a lot. And I would shop with a credit card, but what I would do is pay the balance off. I wouldn't pull my credit card to use it unless I had the money in the bank. And I would make that note, a verbal note, so they know. Because see, when they see you pulling out the card, they tend to think that's the way it needs to be. And that's the way they're going to grow up doing it. But you don't want that to happen. Hello, Candace girl. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining me. Yeah, so you don't really want that to happen. So I made that a point of instruction so that they knew that I wasn't just randomly pulling out a credit card to shop for something that I needed. So they understood that. So that was a major key thing. And all the while I was still doing my big, massive things. So that's how you can relieve yourself of some of the responsibilities. Now, if you have little kids, they can learn to start picking up their toys behind them when they're done with it. Believe me, they're really great at it, They forget, and you may say, okay, did you remember to do blah, da, 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 da? Okay, as soon as, notice how my language is, as soon as you get that, we can do that. Don't say, well, you're not going to do that until you do that. That's kind of putting it negatively, right? But as soon as you take care of those toys, then let's go do X, Y, and Z. And that just puts everything in a positive spin so that they are not looking at the situation negatively and thinking, oh, Lord. Also, when they get to be teenagers, when you want them to complete their homework or whatever the task is and they want to go visit a friend, you can set that premise. You can always, hey, there goes my love bubbles. Thank you. I really love those. Thank you. So you can actually set the premise to tell them that you can visit your friend all you want on a school night, and as soon as you finish the homework, you are free to go and do that. This way they're not looking at it negatively. They'll be more motivated to get it done. Now, I can't possibly go through every single item of training that I do for moms here on this live cast. Obviously, it's a 30-minute call, and I just glanced and noticed I'm 27 minutes in it, so I need to really wrap it up. I want to say a couple other things, though, that I might have overlooked. You want to build fun and enrichment into what you're doing. Have them do some lessons, like maybe sports or whatever they like. But you know what? Make sure it's their natural bent. Make sure it's their natural bent. One of my kids, I can really confess that I probably ignored that with one of my kids. Now, I had them all play an instrument. They all had to play 2 musical instruments, right? A piano and something else. And one of my kids didn't particularly like that. Thank you. She didn't like the piano, and she did beautifully. She didn't really like it. And you know what? Back then, I wasn't even listening to it. But as soon as she got to high school, she didn't want to do it. I didn't let her do it. I just followed her leading. Sometimes we as parents, we have a way to want to force our kids to do something that we think is good for them. Now, for training, I would say not force, but strongly encourage them because it's good for them. You want your kids to stand on their own 2 legs when they go out there. You want them to stand right now so that you can be empowered to be that powerful mom for them as a role model, that they can see how it works. They're watching you. They really are watching you. And they will be incredibly proud of you when they see you working hard and doing the stuff, but build in the fun times. You don't want it to be that you're just going off to work. So I had Mosey memberships. I had memberships to go to the aquarium. I had membership to go to Busch Gardens, and I built that in. But you know what? Can I tell you a secret? Later on, my kids are all approaching 30 now. Don't I look good? Yeah, but anyway, they're all approaching 30 now. We had a conversation about then. And my one daughter, who didn't particularly like the piano stuff, she said, Mom, I said, well, I think that you all did pretty well. You did a lot of things. You had a whole lot of experiences and stuff. You went to Mosey, thanks for the love bubbles, and all of those things. We went to movies. We had fun. And she said, yes, but you didn't ask us what we wanted to do. Whoa, it was like, you picked what you wanted us to. And it never dawned on me. I just thought that, Busch Gardens, the rides they would do. I never thought that saying, okay, so do you want to go to Busch Gardens or do you want to do whatever? I didn't think about that. They had fun in the process, but she saw things that way. So no matter what you do, your kids have their own perception of what is going on. And it's really good to question them in the process about their experience because they may not be vocal about it. They may not be vocal about it. So that was a little tip that I really wanted to share with you. Now, T. Harv Eker, I told you about it. He wrote a book called Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. And that is amazing, that book. If you can get that book and if you can read that book, it has a system in there called the DAR system that you can use to help your child. I think there are 5 jars or 6 jars that you set allowance in. One is for fun, one is for education, one is for needs, and you have them just break out their little money, and one is for play stuff, whatever thing they want to get, that they can start learning to save towards it. I really believe that a lot of the credit issues that people have these days is as a result of them not being responsible enough with their credit. Maybe they didn't learn how to do it. Maybe they did, because there's no guarantee that when you train your child that they're going to follow exactly what you say. I mean, I have dealt with tens of thousands of kids, and their parents. Being a school administrator, I mean, I could write a book 1 mile thick on the things to do and not to do, having been through that and having those parents and their kids sit in my office and learning from them vicariously. I took a lot of those lessons I took home to my kids to teach them so that they didn't have the same dilemma that these parents were experiencing. And that there is also, quickly, I want to run behind that and say, you can do everything right and your kid chooses something else. So just keep that in mind. But the likelihood is way less. It's better you train them and have things go that way. So how do you have it all? Simply by building in what your kids' responsibilities are with what you want to train them with, and then have them monitor while you overlook whatever they're doing. One of my mentors said decades ago, inspect what you expect. If you put this little chart up on that refrigerator and those kids are checking randomly and you're not checking behind them, you have lost the battle. So you've got to check in, and remember, don't nag every day and say, well, I didn't do that. Just make a note and wait for that once a week meeting, which we used to call family meetings, where we talk about a lot of stuff in the household so that people can manage. And the last tip I want to leave with you is the boundaries. You have to set boundaries. I didn't get into the whole thing about the type of parent you are. There's some parents that are more permissive, some authoritarian, some authoritative. That's a whole different ball game, and that's not for this call or this live cast, as I like to call it. However, though, you have to set the boundaries. Spend time with your kids and set boundaries for your time and boundaries for their time. So if you're going to spend 15 minutes with each kid in your household, make sure every other kid knows when you're with this kid, that's their time. And unless it's an emergency and something is dying or the house is burning down, this is their time. Similarly with you, you have to be consistent with setting your boundaries. Create a calendar. I didn't get to that, and that's really important, but I'm going to get to that in a little minute. You need to make sure your kids know what your boundaries are. You know, I am not going to be available during this block of time unless it's an emergency. Please give me some time. And they're going to test it. Believe me, the kids were born to do that. That's what they do. They're going to test it. And every time you've got to be consistent to say the same thing. The minute you break that little consistency and you say, okay, come on in, darling. Oh my, you just made it so much harder for yourself for it to happen the next time. Now they'll get it. If you keep reinforcing it, then eventually they will get it. And they won't come unless it's emergency most of the times, because they'll still try to come. However, if you've got little baby tiny kids, this probably won't work because they won't understand what's going on. I'm talking about school age kids. I think from the age of about 4 or 5, you can begin to understand this. Okay? Now, once you set those boundaries for the other kids and for yourself, reinforce it. Have them know what your values are. What are the values you are raising them to do? If you want those values to be observed, put them on your little chart. I did not overwhelm my chart, but my chart had the important lessons that I wanted my kids to learn and the important things. Now, how do you keep track of the calendars? And then I'll end with this. Google Calendar is amazing. You can put your calendar on Google Calendar, and there is an app. I can't remember the name of that app. Let me see if I can quickly find it. It's called Cozy, C-O-Z-I. If your child is not 13 years old, they can't get a Google account. But in your Google Calendar, you can add calendars for each of your kids and color code it. Ask them, what is your favorite color? And make it that color for them so that you can, and put their names on it so you can identify what the calendars are. Now you can share those calendars. When they open their Google account, share the calendar with them so that they can go in, if they're older kids, and enter their events. We used to go over the calendar events at our family meetings, you know, and talk about what's coming up so that everybody's on the same page. And then, you know, with my husband, I know whether I can do this run or whether he's the one who has to do it, because I have an appointment that is scheduled. And so this is how you do it, going back and forth. Now, if your kids are under 13 and they cannot get the Google account, then giving them a Cozy app with read-only access where they can see what's going on is really great. You don't want anyone to be left out. We used to do the calendar on the refrigerator, but then you don't have that with you during the day, and sometimes you may double schedule yourself. Set the reminder, sync it with your phone so that it's alarming and it's reminding you. And I've covered a lot of tips. There are, believe me when I tell you, there are tons more that we could cover. But this discussion is focused on you ladies having it all. I firmly believe that you can have it all. You can have it all. And as I said, it's not random, all over the place stuff. You have got to figure what is important to you and then blend all of your activities in that space. So let me check down here to see if there are any questions. Thanks, Candace. And any questions from anybody at all? Listen, if you have any questions for me, I feel like a sage at this stage of my age. Isn't that cool? I just rhymed. It just came right off of my head. I didn't even think about it. But I feel like a sage because I have, believe me, decades, triple decades of experience raising kids, looking about other people's kids in the system, making my own mistakes, knowing what to avoid, talking with my adult children now to see what worked for them and what didn't, which gave me a lot of insights, and then also building massively, achieving a lot of things that a lot of the people that I associated with used to say, oh, you are super mom. Oh no, I was not super mom. I just had a system that helped me make it so much easier. So I hope that this conversation today was really great and helpful for you. And what I am going to do tomorrow, tomorrow's the last of this series, and I'm going to talk about the network. And I'm going to pull together some additional resources that you're going to find exactly meeting the needs for you to step out. Now, if you have a particular question or particular situation that you're dealing with, please private message me and I'll be very, very delighted and thrilled to answer that question for you. I really will. And also, if you want to even get on a 30-minute call with me, and there's no selling, trust me, I'm not going to be selling you anything. And as a matter of fact, I would even stand by that and guarantee that if I sell you anything, I will pay you $100. So if you want a free chat, just sorting through whatever it is for you, send me a message and we can arrange it and we can chat, and that will be it. But I hope that you have enjoyed this week so far and that you have learned a lot of things about breakthrough. We haven't touched the surface, believe me. But if you reflect on these things and you put them in practice, and ask questions when you come up against challenges, I think you are well on your way. You are a powerful human being. You are woman. You are powerful. And make no mistake about who you are. Okay, ladies, love you intensely. Send me questions if you have them, and you have the most amazing, amazing Thursday.